Hello and welcome to Quick Take TA here on Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is July 12th, 2024. Now, this is still Friday for me, but the Friday candle has closed for Bitcoin and we are entering the Saturday candle. And we're going to follow up with what we talked about on Wednesday's video and, of course, on Monday's macro video, because there is some important closures over the weekend that we do need to pay attention to, particularly the 3-day and 5-day on Saturday before the weekly candle. So let's go ahead and take a look at the daily first, though, and define some criteria for breaking this particular downtrend and or continuation to the downside. So Bitcoin on Wednesday did put in a high right around 59,500. We saw Thursday's candle wick out in that area as well, just above 59,500. So in order to break this particular downtrend now, Bitcoin does need to close above those wick highs, and I would want to see it recovering this low just prior to the lower high just above current price actions, lower high that it just put in. Now, in this case, if Bitcoin can recover above 59,500, I would look for a run and a test of this low at 60,300. Above there, I would look for Bitcoin to head up and try to trend break on the 2, 3, and 4-day. I know this only says 2 and 3-day right now. I will update the chart to include the 4-day, but we need to see a trend break on the daily. Now, it doesn't need to immediately go and trend break on the 2, 3, and 4-day, but I would be raising my targets to at least test in that area, somewhere around 62 to all the way up to 64, technically, from the standpoint of the structure over here, as long as it's closing above around 60,300 on a daily close. If it did happen to close above that 2, 3, and 4-day target or lower high, that would be at 63.8. Above there, I would eventually look up to the next big zone, which is actually this candle structure over here, around 65 to 65.5. This also happens to be the first swing high from 2021 prior to putting in that $69,000 all-time high. So that would be another area that I will start to mark out once we see a break of structure here, or if we see a break of structure to the upside. Now, even if Bitcoin breaks the downtrend, it's not a given that it's going to enter an uptrend. So what we would need to see if it does break above 59,500 and 60,000 to 60,300 is higher low or equal low structure to develop on the daily to really begin looking for a trend change on the daily, and then subsequently start looking for that to form on the higher term timeframes. In this case, I just wouldn't want to see it coming back down. If it did break to the upside, I wouldn't want to see it coming back down and basically taking out 53,500 here, where you see this downtrend line was perfectly tagged. And this trend line is only connecting these two lows. I had shown this prior to price even hitting it, but I did note that there was a trend line here. And Bitcoin just happened to front run the target one of distribution by tagging that trend line and then popping back up into the danger zone. Now, criteria for the downside would be on any daily closures below 56,500. It is safe for Bitcoin to test below this area. You just don't want to see dailies closing below it. Although you can get some edge on lower term timeframes to kind of inform your idea or the picture of what's occurring on the daily if it's going to close under here. But 56,500 is kind of the pivot. That is this previous lower low of the range. Now, if Bitcoin does break down again, just like here on Sunday, heading into this weekly candle, and of course the start of the week, we saw Bitcoin close below, and the criteria was it closes below 56,500. We're looking for the lows to get ran. We saw that occur coming into the Monday candle. And of course, it did regain 56,500 and then has gone sideways in this danger zone between 56,500 and around 58,400 to 500. So, the same criteria applies. We start seeing closes below 56,500. I'm looking for the lows to get ran. I would look in general right to this close open structure low at 55 to 55,800 or so. Where that wick low is coming in would be fair game as well, and that's in the low $54,000 region. Anywhere below there, I'm looking for the low of the move to get ran at 53,500. Now, I still wouldn't be looking for distribution even if Bitcoin ran this low and tagged 53 at target one of distribution. It's only if Bitcoin closes below 53,500 now. So this entire move down, if Bitcoin is going to continue and go into a distribution to reaccumulation structure, the criteria for me would be on the daily closes below 53,500. Then I would be looking down into target one here at between $53,000 and $50,000. Now, of course, this area was tested as resistance and support back here in February. Now, this area is pretty important because it is from the 2021 into 2022 cycle. $53,000 was a weekly high that was put in. It was a significant one just prior to Bitcoin going on to its all-time high. And then, of course, the $50,000 area was a weekly high in both 2021 and 2022. I'll show this on the longer form video on Monday, but those were, I think it was August and December weeklies, if I remember correctly. They were closing highs. So, $50,000 to $53,000 was an area of resistance back here in February of 2024. So it was retested as resistance and as support prior to going and making the new all-time high now at 73,835. Now, if Bitcoin did go into daily distribution, that would bring up target 2 as a potential. And this is a big monthly zone. Again, I'll show this on Monday's long form video, but 48,240 was the swing high. That basically was the lower high on the monthly that kicked off the bear market down to the close there on that monthly at 45.5. Now, in general, you'll hear me refer to this in most Discord events or in Spaces events as $45,000 to $48,000. That would be my target 2 of distribution. I wouldn't be looking too much further outside of that target unless it was on like a wick basis, maybe a close open deviation. And I'll get to that reasoning why in just a moment. But, in terms of the daily structure right now, Bitcoin really hasn't done much all week. As long as it's holding 56,500, I'd look for things to at minimum go sideways and potentially try up to this yellow zone at around the close open low structure, 58.3 to 5, where Bitcoin has been wicking out and closing in. And then above there, you look for around 59.5, and especially above 60,300, I think things would get rolling to the upside in a more aggressive manner. So that's where we can start looking to those higher term time frame potential breaks of the downtrend. Now, let's go ahead and check on momentum on the daily. This is a regular stochastic indicator. This is not a Stoch RSI. Stoch RSI only measures the velocity or speed of RSI. If you're already using RSI, there's no need for a Stoch RSI. I would rather get information based on the closing momentum, and that's what Stoch does. Stoch measures close over close price momentum, and momentum will be pointed to the upside on any subsequent closures today for the daily above 56,500. Again, leading or lending confluence, I should say, to this danger zone low at 56,500. So if Bitcoin dropped it on a daily close, not only would it be losing this danger zone, but it would also be turning momentum back to the downside. Of course, this would be its lower high to beat at 59,500, just below that key low structure at 60,300. So that would, point right back to the lows, potentially lower into distribution on any closes below 53.5. So keep that in mind. For today, the daily momentum pivot is 56,500. So it is right there, this low over here. Now, in the RSI, we can see that moves to run the low, as long as it's not closing dailies below 53.5, are going to result in more bullish divergence here. So, and even now, I believe, where was this one? Yeah. Even if it puts in a low here, now what would be the criteria for putting in a low here? You'll see an indicator like RSI throw a low indication on any close back above yesterday's high at 58,550. If you do see that, you will see another low being set, and this low was from this 58,400. Now, any kind of low that's set, above there, because this would be a lower low structure with higher low RSI, would result in another bullish divergence here. So Just wanted to call that one out. Let's go ahead and go up a time frame to the 2-day. This is where you can get a clear picture of the last lower high to beat on the 2-day is 63.8. You know, any close, any closes below 56,500 would be the first close below the range lows for the 2-day in this respect, thus indicating the same thing that we were just looking at on the daily. That Bitcoin's likely going to run the lows and lower. And, if Bitcoin can regain, the actual closing low here on the daily and 2-day at 60,300, then it's likely going to try for a trend break at 63.8. Above there, we're looking right around this lower high at 65 to 64. Again, this 63.8 is basically 64. So above there, I'd be looking around 65 to 65.5. And then eventually up to run the lower high here at 67,272. Above there, I'm looking for the range highs again. Now, 2-day momentum is looking pretty good still. And in fact, it's pretty kind right now. This is going to close with the actual weekly candle. So, right? It's going to close today. Yeah, it's going to close with the weekly candle. So 54,800. So basically any closes above $55,000 will keep pressure on to the upside in terms of closing momentum. And there's no in-trend bullish divergence, but there is bullish, let's see. Yeah, like long-term hidden bullish divergence that will populate. Most indicators like mine don't have that far of a look back, so it's not really relevant. But something that I do want to note here is any closes above this simple moving average. You see this white moving average kind of trailing RSI here. This is a 12-period simple moving average. So any closures above around 58, I would say 200 to give it room, we would get a signal. This is typically seen as, you don't take signals like this as buy signals, but it lends confluence to if it's throwing bullish divergence on the daily, and then we get hidden bull div on the RSI on the 2-day, plus momentum shift to the upside, plus the low set, plus a daily downtrend break. Well, guess what? That's basically a go long signal. Not financial advice, of course, but this has been pretty accurate at crossovers of the 12-period moving average, right around the bearish control zone as well, right at the edge there. So closes above 58,200 would get that above its moving average, and of course, that would be well above its momentum pivot. And yeah, to set this low from a technical point of view on a close, 58,400 would do it. I'd want to see the wick highs here at 59.5 taken out though. Otherwise, it's easy for the bears to blunt that particular low being set and blunt the further upside from it. The 3-day just got, the 3-day and 5-day. Yes, these are the important ones. 3-day, you can see the lower high there at 63.8. That needs to be taken out. Otherwise, any closes back below 56,500 run the lows and lower. Now, for the 3-day, we do have something interesting because this is going to close with the Saturday candle and the 5-day candle. So we have the potential, if Bitcoin can close above 56,750, I would actually, because this number is moving around, I would say above 56,800 to $57,000 on Saturday, that being today's daily candle, which is the Saturday candle. I'd be looking at this getting its initial cross back to the upside, although we still would need to see follow through in the next closure for whatever the momentum pivot would update to. In this case, typically when you get an initial cross of momentum on a regular stoke, the momentum pivot dives to the lows, either on a close or the actual wick lows. So I would expect the momentum pivot to dive somewhere around $54,000 to $55,000 at minimum. So that is something to be aware of. In regards to the 3-day, we don't have a setup for a signal on RSI just yet, but it is bouncing off the bearish control zone. Don't be surprised if things get blunted here and it loses 56.5 for it to head back down to the edge of the bearish control zone there. I have some stats on that. That's around $56,000 even. So it could even test that intraday. No problem there. Let's go ahead and move on to the 4-day. We just had no this 4 day. This 4 day is going to close at the next 2 day and weekly, so this one's very important. The 4 day did not close below 56.5, so again, coming into the weekly, you don't want to see closures below there. And even on the weekly, when we look at that in just a moment, trend break is that 63.8. There's nothing much more interesting going on here just yet. We can see that Bitcoin is getting pretty deep in the bearish control zone for Stoke momentum. Let's see what the pivot is. The pivot is 59,800. So, if we do happen to see price move up in a more aggressive fashion towards $60,000 on Saturday coming into Sunday, well, you want to see it close above there, and we would get an initial cross on the 4 day as well. Otherwise, it's pressure down. 5 day is going to close with the 3 day candle. So with today's daily being the Saturday candle, even though this is Friday still for me. 5 day has a swing high. This swing high is 63.8. And the area that needs to be recovered is the close open at 60,300. So that would set a 5 day low, thus indicating that from the 5 day charts perspective, we would be looking to 63.8 as the next major area that Bitcoin has to recover. And he closes below 56,500, which is basically the close open of this 5 day structure. And I'm looking for the lows and lower to get ran. Pretty simple. 5 day is still going to be pressured down on Stoke momentum. Let's see here. And yeah, this is pretty aggressive in terms of the 5 day momentum pivot. So we still have pressure on, unless Bitcoin were to close above basically its downtrend break, the 2, 3, 4 day on a close, and the swing on the 5 day at 63.8, and then subsequently recover 64.5 or so. Then we'd look for a momentum shift. Otherwise, the next 5 day candle is still going to be pressure down, and we come back to it next week for the potential for it to possibly change that picture in the 5 day context. In this case, we're not really looking for too much more. I mean, this this has already tagged the 5 day area down here by the bearish control zone, which is coming in at 55,827. We ran 54 earlier this week on Monday. And, so that area has been tested from the 5 day charts perspective. We just need to really see, those lower term timeframes start to switch around and start breaking trend. I mean, it's just a downtrend right now. So we need to see it start to build its way out and then that lead into this 5 day period. But again, the really important part about the 5 days closing above the bottom side of the danger zone. Technically, if you want to get real technical, 56,700. So it did close open slightly above 56.5. So this daily candle, meaning Saturday's candle that's currently open right now, the 3 day and 5 day need to hold above around 56.5 to 700. So that's what you're going to be looking for on Saturday. And then coming into the weekend, of course, called this out on Monday's video. This is a downtrending structure. Bitcoin closed and opened underneath 56,500. What I would really like to see is Bitcoin reclaim, from the close open. If it doesn't push up above 60,300, I'd like to at least see it reclaim by the end of the week around 58.4. That would give me the confidence that it can run 60,300 and start to close above there and set a low on the weekly. Now this low, no matter where it comes in, we don't even need to look at RSI. It's going to get hidden bullish divergence from this low over here. Weekly still full on pressure to the downside. 67,500, almost 67,600 there for the pivot. So we need to see that pivot drop pretty substantially by Monday. So, and we will, no matter what, no matter where Bitcoin hits. And then we come back to it for next week, coming into, the next 2 weeks pretty much. So that's the long of the short of it here for Bitcoin. My voice is started out good and is starting to fail. I've been talking all week on various Spaces events and having an awful lot of fun with everybody. So if you are new here and new to my style of technical analysis, please feel free to ask questions in any of those events or in my timeline, or if you're in one of the Discords, feel free to ask me any questions you might have. I will follow up on Monday, of course, with the Macro Mondays video, and I will throw volatility back on. One of the things that I do want to caution you about here in regards to lower term timeframes is this 12-hour. I don't like the look of this 12-hour, and on the higher term timeframes, like I said, Monday I'll look at volatility, but you see that the 12-hour time frame is starting to get compression. So we had expansion down. We had a really structured sell-off, and then we got expansion, mean reversion to test and reject this low, and at the upper first, and then got a re-expansion to the downside to its actual low there. Well, we're getting compression again, and here's where you can very easily start to identify things over the weekend. If Bitcoin can close above the upper second, great. That's above 59.5. That would be a downtrend break on the daily. We would need to see continuation above the upper third right now, which is that 60,300. If we were to see, that would initiate expansion, and likely we'd see trend forming on the lower term timeframes that would point to some higher price targets than that. Of course, some of the structure over here, 62 to 64, basically. Now, on the other side of that, if you start seeing 56,500 closed below on a 12-hour, that's going to probably lead the daily if it doesn't pop right back up and in. We're looking to the lower second. Any closes below 55.5, which is this close open low of this entire move on the 12-hour, we'd be looking for expansion. And the reason why this is giving me a little bit of caution right now is because if we did see that close below, not only would it be expansion down to retest the actual low of the move, but likely start leading into the daily distribution that I've been talking about. And the main reason why is because we do see that the 12-hour Stochh is looking kind of tired in an area that it found resistance in before. And this is in the bullish control zone. It's kind of in the edge of the bullish control zone for momentum. But when the 12-hour turns, much like it did back here on the 24th of July, I want you to look at this. 12-hour was getting up here, started to put in the high. Once it put in the high and closed it, the next candle opened and it turned down on momentum. And then immediately the lower term time frame started dumping back to the zone, right back to the lows, and then getting continuation through them in the next couple of candles because it got expansion. That would be the same kind of look here. 12-hour always leads to daily, obviously. And, the look on the 12-hour, could potentially turn very bearish on closes below 56.5. So please be aware of that over the weekend and see if it turns over. Now, if it does turn over, but Bitcoin's holding 56,500, I would look at lower term timeframes and see if we're getting a bullish reset on momentum. There is the possibility for that on the 4-hour. It's already pointed up, but 4 hours is going to close. We're getting 3 4-hour candles per 12-hour candle. So 4-hour could easily run out momentum within the range and turn down as well. So be very, very cautious. It pays to be defensive in this area right now, at minimum, until we see a downtrend break. So I'm going to leave you with that. This one ran a little long today. To all my new followers, I would thank you for following me. Again, ask me questions in Spaces events or Discord events, or even in the timeline here, and I'll be happy to answer you. And I appreciate you all. You have a wonderful weekend. Touch some grass. And have a wonderful day, wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, I should say. And with all of that said, Landy out.